The soccer field at the end of Willow Lane looked like an ocean under the late sun, green waves of grass rippling, white lines drawn like foam along the edges. Children swarmed the expanse in colorful jerseys, their laughter and shouts rising above the steady thump of the ball. From beyond the chain-link fence, a line of folding chairs held a chorus of parents whose voices ebbed and surged with every pass, every stumble, every goal. Arjun moved through it all with the grace of a swift river. He was 11 and long-limbed, with a mop of hair that never stayed down and eyes that read the field the way a bird reads wind. When the ball kissed his foot, he felt as though the night sky opened and the stars tugged him forward. He loved the geometry of it, the angles of a pass, the arc of a shot, the daring threads of runs that stitched teammates together. He loved the sound the ball made against his cleats, the quick breath before a shot, the moment when the world narrowed to motion, balance, touch. He loved it all. But in recent weeks, love had turned noisy. "Pass sooner, Arjun!" a father shouted from the sideline. "Why dribble there?" snapped another adult. "That wasn't the right decision," the assistant coach barked. "You think you're the star?" During a scrimmage, a defender refused to return a pass. A midfielder rolled his eyes when Arjun sprinted into open space. A forward, older by a year and 2 inches taller, stopped calling for the ball when Arjun drew defenders toward him. Voices stacked in Arjun's head like heavy books on a wobbling shelf. Selfish. Not good enough. Should have crossed, not cut. Arjun's chest tightened around the words. He ran harder and tried to be perfect, which meant he was slower at making decisions, which meant he was less perfect still. And perfection is a thorned vine. It grows, wraps, squeezes. Every evening practice became a test where invisible hands squeezed him all over. He returned home washed out and quiet, like the pale color of the sky after a sunset has bled away. One Friday, he trudged off the field pressed flat by the scrape of other people's words. His father, Dev, waited near the gate, hands in the pockets of a windbreaker, the hood down, hair pushed back by the breeze. Dev had the kind of smile that always made room for more joy, but he wasn't smiling then. He was watching, and his eyes were kind. "How was it?" Dev asked, falling into step beside him. Arjun shrugged. He scuffed the toe of his cleat against the asphalt. "Fine," he said. "Terrible." Dev looked up into the wash of deepening blue. "That's a big sky for a single day," he murmured. You want to tell me about it? Words lodged and loosened. They walked to the car. Inside, with the heater humming, Arjun pressed his palms to his knees and stared out at the field that was already fading into night. He began to speak, tumbling everything from his chest onto the space between them, how no one passed him the ball when he made runs, how his good passes were dismissed as bad, how his teammates acted like he wasn't there, how the coach only noticed his mistakes, how parents turned their throats into trumpets of disapproval. The more he told it, the more exhausted he felt, as if every sentence were a mile he had to run through sand. Dev listened. He didn't interrupt with solutions. He didn't fill the silence after each paragraph of worry. He just drove, fingers light on the steering wheel, and let the car carry them out of the clamor and down the quiet glow of their neighborhood. When they pulled into the driveway, the porch light blinked on a small yellow moon. Dev cut the engine. "We're going to the kitchen," he said. "The kitchen?" Arjun asked. "Trust me." Inside, the house smelled like cumin and roasted garlic. There was a soft hiss as the kettle clicked off on the stove. Kind of softness you can feel under your ribs settled between the walls. Dev gestured to the pantry. "Bring me a potato, a banana, and an orange." Arjun blinked. He wiped his hands on a dish towel, kicked off his cleats, and did as he was told. When he returned with a lumpy russet potato tucked in one palm, a freckled banana at the crook of his elbow, and a bright orange that fit perfectly into his other hand, Dev cleared space on the counter. "Good," Dev said softly. "Now, squeeze the orange with both hands. Hard." Arjun cupped the orange and pressed. Skin resisted, then gave. Juice ran down his fingers and onto the cutting board in glossy rivulets. Kitchen filled with the perfume of citrus, sharp, clean, full of sunlight held together. Dev nodded. "Harder," he said. Arjun squeezed again, and the orange bled its treasure. More juice. He squeezed until the rind felt thin and hollow, until the last reluctant drop trembled and let go. His hands dripped sticky sweetness. "Now," Dev said, handing Arjun a paper towel to wipe his palms. "The potato." Arjun looked at the potato, at its dimpled skin and quiet weight, then wrapped both hands around it. He squeezed. Nothing changed. He repositioned his fingers and tried with his knuckles. Potato was stubborn. He pressed it against the wooden board and lean. Addition. He squeezed with the focus he had when a through ball threaded a narrow path between defenders. Nothing. His hands trembled. Potato held itself together without apology. Try harder, Dev said. Arjun did. His arms quivered. The potato stayed a potato. He huffed out a breath and shook his hands. Okay, he said. This one doesn't have juice. Exactly, Dev said. He took the orange husk and the unbending potato and placed them side by side. He touched the edge of the cutting board like it was a stage where two actors had taken their places. People will squeeze you in this life, Dev said. They will squeeze because they are afraid or proud or bored or because their own hearts are full of noise they don't know how to quiet. They will squeeze because they don't understand how much you love the game or because they do and it makes them feel the space between their love and their skill. If you're like an orange when they squeeze, every sharp comment, every shrug, every rolled eye, your sweetness will run out. What you used for joy will become what they take for sport. Your strength leaks until your cheeks are hollow and your chest is full of air and your hands are sticky with what used to make you glow. Dev placed his palm over the potato. But if you are like this, self-confident, whole, honest with yourself about where you're strong and where you're learning, then people can press, and you will still be you. You won't become hard like a stone. Potatoes cook soft for soups. They are gentle when warmed. But even in your softness, your core is solid. Others' words will not extract you because you are not holding your worth in a place their hands can reach. Integrity is the way you hold yourself together. Kettle ticked as it cooled. Outside, a neighbor's wind chime trembled a handful of glass notes. Arjun stared at the orange's empty shell, at the stubborn potato that had absorbed his strongest grip without changing shape. So, Arjun said, I should be like a potato. Dev laughed, a quiet, delighted sound. Yes, a potato with a warm heart. And keep the banana for later. He winked. We respect snacks in this house. Arjun smiled, a small thing at first. It grew. Dev leaned against the counter. Tell me what you know about yourself, he said. Arjun looked down at his hands. I know I love soccer. How do you know? I forget I'm standing on the earth when I'm with the ball. Everything is lighter. Or sharper. Both. That's good, Dev said. What else? I'm fast. I see plays before they happen. I don't quit. He paused. I'm kind, I think. You are, Dev said. All of that. And you're learning every day. Those truths live inside you. Don't keep them scattered like marbles someone else can roll away. Keep them in the cupboard behind your ribs. Lock the door with discipline and passion and honesty and hard work. That's the cabinet they can't reach through their opinions. Arjun breathed out slowly. But what do I do when I hear them? When they're right there? We will give you some tools, Dev said. Let's make a small ritual. They sat at the kitchen table. Dev slid a small notebook across the surface. Cover was the color of rain. Tonight you write down 3 strengths you used at practice and 1 lesson, he said. Not a mistake, call it a lesson. Tomorrow do the same. Before a game, you'll open this notebook and read your strengths like a coach calling your name from the bench. Then you'll take a breath and connect your feet to the floor. The floor is the earth. The earth does not care if someone is shouting from a folding chair. In that breath, imagine the potato. Not as armor. As identity. Solid. Simple. Yours. Arjun touched the notebook like it was a new friend. And if someone says I should have passed when I shouldn't have, or that I dribbled too much, Dev lifted one hand and made a fist, fingers closing around air. Close your hand around your response. Don't let it spill out like juice at the first squeeze. You can always open later if there's something to learn. But you choose when to open. They ate fried rice together, the spoon clinking against the bowl. Before bed, Dev took Arjun to the backyard where the night lay deep and friendly. The maple tree stood like an old guard, and a halo of stars hung above the roofline. Look, Dev said, pointing to a bright bead of light. That's Venus tonight. People called it the morning star and the evening star. Different names, same planet. What something is doesn't change because the world calls it something else. Arjun squinted up. The air was crisp. He imagined the voices from the sidelines shrinking into ants, while the sky lifted his chin. He felt a small, spreading calm. The next day, they went to the community library. Dev checked out a biography of a midfielder who had become a legend despite being told he was too slight, too quiet. They read a chapter together each evening. Player had practiced in empty lots, crafted his vision with solitude, and learned to play while the wind was his only critic. Arjun underlined a sentence I learned that my feet spoke truth louder than anyone else. Mouth. The weeks that followed were not magic. Magic is a light switch and life is a dimmer slow to warm the bulb. But there were changes. Practice, when the coach grumbled about Arjun's risky through ball instead of deflating, Arjun checked his breath, felt his soles land square and thought potato. He smiled inwardly. He asked the coach a question with respect. Coach, for that pass, I saw the defender step early. Should I try a decoy first next time? And learn something practical while protecting his joy. During a scrimmage where no one seemed to see his runs, he stopped waving his arms. Instead, he adjusted. He found space, turned to receive, and praised any small thing. Good idea, he told the left back when the ball rolled out because the angle had been awkward. Clever try, he told the keeper who overhit an outlet pass. He gave away positivity like bread at a table, a slice at a time. Slowly, a forward named Leo began to glance up and search for him. The older midfielder's shoulders softened by a hair's width. When Arjun was fouled and landed on his hip, the assistant coach darted a look that wasn't exactly kind but wasn't sharp either. It was a question mark, not a knife. Progress, Arjun told himself. The notebook filled with pages of strengths and lessons. He tucked it beneath his pillow, as if confidence could travel through cotton and wood into bone and dream. One Saturday morning brought the Riverside Cup, a small tournament with teams from 3 neighboring towns. A breeze worried the edges of the pennants. The fields were dappled in sun and shadow, the day a hum of whistles and claps and sneakers on grass. Arjun tied his laces, then untied them, then tied them again. He took a breath. He touched the ground with his fingertips like he was greeting an old friend. Tato, he thought. pull, warm when needed, unsqueezable. Dev leaned on the fence behind the goal. He lifted his hand, thumb raised, not in a demanding way or a performative way, just a quiet "I see you. You're you." Arjun's heart steadied. The first match was against the Blue Jays, who wore cobalt and moved like a well-oiled machine. In the opening minutes, Arjun cut inside and threaded a pass between two defenders. The forward didn't anticipate it. The ball rolled out of bounds, and a father in a baseball cap sighed theatrically. "Too fancy," he muttered to the air. Arjun felt the squeeze. He imagined his hands around his response, knuckles closed gently, breathing through the urge to explain himself to the sky. Next play, he checked to the ball, bounced it back to his midfielder, drifted right, and was rewarded with a wall pass he could run onto. He took a deep touch, head up, saw the keeper off his line, and sent a chipped shot that kissed the crossbar and landed behind the net. The sound of the net was a song he knew by heart. His teammates ran toward him. Leo's hand found the back of his head in celebration. The forward met his eyes with a grin. "That was sweet as an orange," Leo said, then blinked. I mean nice one." Arjun laughed. "Thanks." By mid-afternoon, they were through to the semi-final. In the quarterfinal, Arjun had missed a penalty, sliced it wide, the ball skidding into the yellow grass near the corner flag. The world narrowed like a hallway. He felt the prick of humiliation rise in his throat. He looked at Dev. His father's expression didn't change. It wasn't forced or pitying or cheerful. It was steady, like a dock after you jump and swim and need a place to pull yourself out of the water. Arjun took a breath. He signed his name in the notebook in his mind next to the words "I missed." Then he wrote the lesson next time: plant foot closer. Breathe on the run up. He shook Leo's hand with honesty. "My bad," he said, not as a plea for reassurance, not as an invitation for someone to pat him on the head, but as a real acceptance. Then he jogged back, listened for the thrum of his pulse, and came alive for the next play. In the semi-final, it began to rain. The field turned slick, a watercolor painting blurring at the edges. The game gathered its own heartbeat. Arjun saw an opponent's eyes widen before the whistle, nerves. He saw a teammate, Manny, swallow hard and look away when someone from the stands yelled, "Manny, watch your mark!" He saw the way Manny's shoulders curled inward after that, like he was trying to fold himself into a smaller target. At halftime, while everyone swigged water beneath a tree, Arjun sidled up to Manny. "Hey," Arjun said, voice low, "I want to try something." "What?" Manny murmured, eyes on the ground. "If someone shouts your name with a command," Arjun said, "pretend you're hearing your music but you're choosing which chorus to sing. Like you hear it but you pick your own timing to sing it back. Try it." Manny frowned, then nodded. "Okay." In the second half, a loose ball ping-ponged in the box. Manny hesitated then as another shout rose. "Manny!" He lunged in when he chose, not when the voice demanded, and poked the ball out for a corner. He stood up taller afterward. He glanced at Arjun, who gave him a nod that meant "I saw that." Manny's mouth twitched into a small, surprised smile. Little victories stitched the team together. They won in a scrape 2-1. In the final, clouds mounted like distant cathedrals and then slid away. The sun returned, warm and theatrical, laying a bright stage on the grass. Their opponents wore red and gold and had a forward who ran as if the earth were a treadmill made just for him. In the opening minutes, Arjun sprinted back to cover and intercepted a pass. The other team was loud, voice a wave. His chest was calm. Potato, he thought again, but now it felt like a small candle inside him rather than a word. Felt steady. Midway through the half, Arjun tried a 1-2 pass with Leo. Leo misread and the ball was taken. The older midfielder on their team rolled his eyes. "Come on, Arjun," he said, loud enough to carry. Arjun turned toward him without turning toward him. He didn't need the other boy's approval to breathe. He focused on what he could control: movement, energy, eyes up. When he got the ball next, he drove at the defense, faked with his shoulder, and then reversed the ball to Manny, who took a first-time shot. It skidded under the keeper's glove. Manny stood frozen for a heartbeat, as if he needed the world to notify him that he'd done something right. Then his hands flew upward. The sideline burst like popcorn. Manny's dad, who had been quiet and clenched all morning, who had said too many instructions, cupped his hands to his mouth, and for the first time all day what came out was not a command but a laugh. The red and gold team equalized in the second half. The game tilted into intensity. In the final 5 minutes, Arjun was clipped from behind, legs tangling, and he tumbled. As he hit the ground, someone shouted, "Stop falling down," as if gravity could be scolded into behaving differently. His knees stung. He felt the old hooks of anger reach for him. He closed his hand around his response and held it, warm but contained. He stood up. He was not juice. He was breath and bone and intention. Time had a way of stretching and collapsing in the last minute, every second long and short, elastic and brittle. The ball spun out to the corner. Arjun chased. He could have tried to beat his man to the end line. He could have shot from an absurd angle. He could have gone for glory. He stopped. He shielded. He listened to his body like a musician listens to the rests between notes. He waited. And then he slipped a pass back to Leo, whose run had been perfect. Leo thumped it in. They won. The trophy was plastic and light, and yet it dented the old doubts with its small gleam. But in the car afterward, Arjun wasn't thinking of trophies. He was thinking of the way his breath traveled through his ribs when he needed it to. He was thinking of Manny's surprised smile. He was thinking of how the coach had clapped him on the back, the contact not perfunctory but acknowledging. And he was thinking of oranges and potatoes. At home in the kitchen again, Dev cut an orange into wedges and set them in a bowl. He boiled a potato and mashed it with butter, salt, and a little milk. They sat with bowls of both. "How do you feel?" Dev asked. "Like I didn't let the day drink me up," Arjun said. He bit into an orange wedge. Juice spilled down his chin. He laughed. He swiped his sleeve across his mouth. "Also, I missed a penalty earlier." "I saw," Dev said. "I learned from it." "I saw that too." Arjun dug his spoon into the mashed potato. It was creamy, warm, and somehow full of a sturdiness that made him feel grounded. He thought of how the potato had resisted the squeeze, then softened beautifully in heat. The word that came to him was not tough or hard or invulnerable. It was steady. It was nourishment. It was who he wanted to be. "How did you become like this?" Arjun asked suddenly. I mean, who taught you about being a potato? Dev leaned back in his chair, eyes on some invisible place beyond the ceiling. When I was your age, I was in a school play, he said. I had exactly 3 lines, and one of them was, "The carriage is here." I practiced at home in front of the wardrobe where my reflection looked braver than I felt. On the night of the play, in the crowd was a boy who had made fun of me for always reading in the library at lunch. He snickered during my first line. While I waited for my second, I felt my face go hot, and suddenly the wardrobe mirror wasn't there, only his smirk. I went out and said, "The carrot is here," and the audience laughed. Some people laughed kindly. He laughed mean. I wanted to wind myself into an orange peel until I disappeared. Arjun's eyes were round with interest. Oh no. Oh yes, Dev said, smiling. Afterward, Mr. Varela, our music teacher, found me backstage. He didn't say I did great or criticize my mistake. He handed me a small rock. It was smooth and gray with white lines through it. "Carry this in your pocket," he said. "It's from the river. Every day the water is loud, fast, and tiresome. The rock can't stop the water from rushing, but it decides what is kept and what is worn away. We become what we let touch us and how we let it touch us. I kept that rock for years, and every time someone tried to squeeze me, I remembered the river and the rock and how my value wasn't sitting on the surface waiting for someone else to rub it off." Arjun pictured the river sliding around stones whose shapes had become elegant through endurance. He imagined being in the water, feeling its rush but not becoming a rag for it. "In soccer," Dev went on, "there is so much you cannot control. The bounce of a ball, a ref's call, a teammate's mood, a parent's voice. But there is a land inside you no one else can step on unless you open the gate. That is where your confidence grows. That's where your joy sleeps and wakes." Arjun nodded. He wanted to say thank you. He wanted to say many things. Instead, he ate an orange slice and saved the peel because it smelled like morning. That night, the dream that visited him was a playful thing. He ran not on grass but on a patchwork of clouds, soft but sure beneath his feet. Every time someone tried to shout at him, the clouds bounced the sound away like gentle trampolines. The ball glowed like a small moon ahead of him. When he woke up, he felt the stadium of his chest both full and quiet. Monday at practice, the assistant coach blew his whistle and said, "We're going to work on passing tempo." His tone held less complaint than usual. It held intention. Arjun watched his teammates. He noticed how the older midfielder, whose eyes had rolled last time, now kept his gaze level. Arjun took the drill and stitched a little joy into it. He received and passed, turning his foot not just into a tool but into a conversation partner. He made a good pass. Someone said it was lucky. He made another. Someone didn't say anything at all. He decided that the measure of his day wasn't going to be how many compliments he gathered, but how many times he honored the part of himself that shone. Something else happened, too. A boy named Nikhil, who had been chilly toward Arjun, lingered after practice while others packed up. He scuffed his shoe against the line of the penalty box and didn't look up when he spoke. "My uncle said I should shoot more," he said. "He says I always pass." Arjun studied the little mountain of black rubber pellets Nikhil's cleat was making. "Do you want to shoot more?" he asked. Nikhil shrugged. "Sometimes. Sometimes I like passing." "Both could be true," Arjun said. He kept his voice breezy, not like a sermon but like a breeze through an open window. "Do you want to stay and shoot a few?" They shot until the light thinned. They talked a little. Nikhil had an older brother who was loud. He did fine in school, but it didn't feel like enough. When the uncle shouted from the sideline, Nikhil's head felt full of bees. Arjun nodded. He did not fix it. He did not try to be a hero. He shared his potato story, and they laughed and laughed at the image of an entire team rolling around like potatoes whenever someone yelled at them. The laughter felt like a tiny rebellion against the idea that direction must always arrive like orders. As the season unfolded, the air turned sweet with the smell of cut grass. Arjun found that his play wasn't just more confident, it was more generous. He gave energy to the field. He thanked teammates, listened to the coach with respect but without shrinking, asked questions because curiosity had become easier than fear. On days when a shot skied, he wrote the lesson. On days when a parent's words needled, He held his response until he could decide whether the needle was a sewing needle, which could help stitch something useful, or a thorn. He began to sense how steady looks in others, Manny's laugh returning, Leo's jokes loosening, even the assistant coach starting to say please and thank you not often but once in a while. Dev watched and didn't make speeches. He asked questions. He brought home a small jar and filled it with slips of paper. On a slip he wrote, "Your choice to lift Manny." On another, how you took the blame and then moved on. On a third, the way you looked at the field like a page you loved to write on. He placed them on the mantel. Some nights Arjun added to the jar, some nights he didn't. The jar filled slowly. These were not trophies. These were seeds. Late in the season, a match arrived that should have been easy and wasn't. The other team played with fewer players. The ref missed a handball so enormous that everyone on the field looked briefly at the sky as if it could be appealed to. The sun was in their eyes. Arjun miscontrolled a pass that would have led to a simple goal. A groan wrinkled the air behind him. He felt a pang. He imagined his father's rock. He imagined the potato under the warm light of the oven, turning soft in heat but holding its shape before the flame. He focused again. He ran again. He tried again. The final whistle, the score was a draw. On the walk back to the car, a parent in a red jacket thumped his own son on the shoulder and said, "You can't miss those, what are you doing?" The boy's mouth tightened. Arjun's eyes met Dev's and then flicked away because the sight of someone else being squeezed tugged on an old ache in him. He wanted to say something to the parent, but he knew it would be a sound swallowed by wind. Instead, he caught the boy's eye and said, "Your run was perfect. Next time I'll see it faster." The boy's face lightened the way a room does when a curtain is drawn back from a window. Driving home, Dev tapped the steering wheel in time with the music and said, "It's easier to be generous when you're not leaking." Arjun grinned. "I think that's true about milkshakes too." "It's true about many things," Dev said, "including milkshakes." At home, on the refrigerator door, they hung a small picture they'd found in a magazine, a farmer's hand holding a potato plant pulled from the soil, tiny new potatoes clinging pale and round around the roots. Someone had written under it in pencil, "Pride is quiet. Grows underground." That winter, when the field lay under a white shawl of frost, when Arjun practiced dribbling at the indoor gym, He still thought about rivers and rocks, oranges and potatoes. He learned how to carry himself into rooms that felt loud and into rooms that felt empty. He learned to listen for his own voice, the one that loved the sound of the ball more than it feared the sound of critique. He learned to build a cabinet of strength behind his ribs and to lock and unlock it with intention. Of all the changes, the most invisible and the most important was the gentleness he learned for himself. On a day when he flubbed a first touch, he didn't declare his hands clumsy. He told himself his muscles were learning and asked them kindly to learn faster. On a day when he soared, he didn't decide he was untouchable. He thanked his feet and gave away the joy by helping someone else soar too. The steadiness seeped into other things, into how he talked to his sister when she borrowed his favorite book without asking, into how he studied not because the grades spoke his worth but because learning did, into how he helped a neighbor shovel snow by making a game of it rather than a chore. One night, Dev and Arjun sat at the kitchen table again, the wind rattling the windows like bones in a song. Dev lit a candle and placed it in the center. "There will be years," Dev said, "when you will forget this. When the world presses new hands against you, exams, rejections, expectations. When it happens, remember this counter, this orange, this potato, this notebook, this candle. You are not the weather, you are the house. Let the wind touch you and whistle and leave." Arjun reached out, steady as he had ever been, and touched the table, scarred by forks and pencils and elbows, the map of his life etched into it. "I think I'll remember," he said. "I think you will too," Dev replied, smiling into the candlelight. Years later, people would ask Arjun why he looked calm in a storm, why he smiled after he missed, why he ran back after he scored to help reset the defense. He would think of an orange and then a potato. He would say something that sounded like a joke and felt like a truth. "I got good at not being squeezable." Sometimes he would add, "My dad taught me," because even the most inward strengths often arrive in our lives like a gift placed quietly on the counter by someone who loves us. That night, still as the stars, Arjun opened his notebook before bed. He wrote, "Strengths 1, vision in tight spaces. 2, keeping my voice kind when I felt squeezed. 3, being honest then moving on. Lesson: when noise rises, breathe on the ball, listen to it, it will tell you what to do." He closed the notebook gently and slid it under his pillow. And he slept like a field sleeps under frost, alive even in quiet, waiting for the sun. Moral of the story: true confidence comes from within, anchored in integrity and honest self-knowledge, not in the shifting opinions of others. If you hold your worth like the potato, solid and whole, No amount of external squeezing can drain your joy. Failures and criticism can teach you, but they do not define you unless you hand them that power. Guard your inner voice, choose what to absorb, and keep playing your game with kindness, discipline, and heart.